Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of our web design tutorial series. I am Michał from mdbootstrap.com and today I will teach you how to create this animated full page intro section with radial gradient background, interesting shapes created with CSS and interactive card with famous glass effect. Really awesome. Without further ado, let's jump into the code. In this tutorial, I will use Material Design for Bootstrap, which is a free library that greatly extends the capabilities of regular Bootstrap and provides many useful features, like for example, better look, additional components, free templates, and even a free hosting for your projects. To download Material Design for Bootstrap, go to mdbootstrap.com and click big blue Get Started button. Then click big red Download button and unzip the package. Then open it in your favorite code editor. I am using Visual Studio Code. To launch mdbootstrap project, you need to open it in the browser. You can do it simply by dragging and dropping index.html file into the browser window. If you use Visual Studio Code editor, you can also install extremely useful extension called Live Server. It enables a live reload feature, so it will refresh the browser anytime you change anything in your code, so you don't need to do it manually. At the beginning, let's remove an existing content of index.html so that we have an empty canvas ready to start new project. Select everything in between the Start Your Project Here comments, remove it, and save the file. Now we are ready to start our work. We'll start with a background. First, let's set the height of the body element to 100 viewport units. In Bootstrap, we can achieve this simply by adding class to the body element vh100. Next, let's set a color for the background. We'll use this dark navy blue in our design. So let's open style tags inside of the head section and set the background color. First, let's get the body and then set a background color to dark navy blue. As you can see here, in the corners we have a brighter parts. To achieve this effect in CSS, we'll use radial gradients. To apply radial gradients, we need to use a background image property. Let's set background image, background image, and then volume radial gradient, and then we need to define the size of the gradient. So let's set it to 650 pixels. Next, we need to define the shape, so we'll set it to circle, and then we need to define the position. So if we set it to 0%, it will position the gradient in the left top corner. So let's have a look how it will look like. Let's say red and transparent 100. And as you can see, we have a gradient in the left top corner. So if we position it, if we set it to 100%, you will see it will move it to the right bottom corner. And if we remove this, it will move the gradient to the center. So let's set it to 0 and 0. To achieve the effect of imitating diffuse light, we'll have to use several different colors in our gradient. Although we're actually going to use the same color but with a different brightness level. So let's copy this color and let's replace the red with this 4 times. Then let's set the brightness of each color in gradation. In HSL format, the last value is responsible for brightness. The higher is the value, the brighter the color. So this one I want to be 90%, then 20%, 30 and 35. Next, let's define how much of the available space the given shade should take up. So this one should have 80% of available space, this one 75, this one 35, and this one only 15%. Now let's see how it looks. Alright, now it looks perfect. The gradation is really smooth, and I think it's really imitate the natural light. Now let's create the second gradient, the second source of the light. So we can basically copy this, and after a comma we can paste it here, but instead of 0% we'll set it to 100%. So we have a second source in the bottom right corner. This one should be bigger, so instead of 650 I will set it to 1250 pixels, and then let's also adjust the brightness. 45 here, 2090, alright. 15, it should be fine. Perfect. As you can see here, the layout is divided into 2 parts. So we need to create a Bootstrap grid with 2 columns inside. So let's create a container and let's set it high to 100%. Then let's create a row. And let's create also 2 columns. Call MD6 and the second call MD6 as well. Inside of the first column we want to have H1 heading, then we want to have a subheading. Some lorem ipsum should be enough, and then paragraph, and below also 2 buttons. It doesn't look very good right now, but we will get to the correct place soon. First, we need to align the content vertically, and we can easily achieve this by using flexbox. So let's add the flex to the row to enable flexbox, then align items center to align it vertically, and we also need to set a high to 100%. Then let's set the color of the text to white. So we can add the text white class to the container, and then we also want to change the color gradually in the text. So for H1 the sharpest, and then less and less clear blending with a background for subheading and paragraph. So with inline CSS, let's add style attribute here. Now let's set the color property to HSL. 81, and the brightness 95. Alright, and let's copy this here, and here we want to be a bit darker, and here even more. Now let's add the classes to each of the text elements. So for H1 I want to add additional margin bottom and also opacity equals to 90, and here for subheading the same margin bottom and opacity 80, and for paragraph the same margin and opacity 70. Now it looks really good to me. The most important part, the heading, looks really sharp, and then gradually it gets more and more subtle. Then let's take care of buttons. Instead of button primary, I want to use button white and also button rounded to have nice rounded corners. Let's also set a margin to right to 3. And it could be a good idea to also use opacity to achieve the effect of lightness here. Let's change the text to "buy now", and the same here, but instead of button white we'll use button outline white and also button rounded, and the same opacity. And the text "learn more". And maybe we should use large buttons, so button LG and button LG here. We can also change the color of the ripple effect. In outline button it's okay because it has a dark background, so the background color from the body, but here on a white button, white ripple doesn't look good. So to change the color of the ripple, we'll need to use a data ripple attribute, data ripple color actually, and let's set a color to the color of the background. HSL, maybe a bit lighter. Alright, now it looks perfect. Then it's time to create a card in the second column. So here I'm going to create a div with an ID card custom, and then let's add a few classes. So card, to create a Bootstrap card component, but let's change the shadow to a bit stronger, bigger, shadow 6, and let's also increase the roundness of the corners. Then inside of this card I want to use a card body, but also I want to increase the padding, and then let's create a content inside of the card, H2 strong platinum card, and below span with FW light for lighter font weight card. All right. And now we need to add a few lines of custom CSS. So let's catch our card custom ID and let's set a width to 350 pixels and height to 500 pixels, and then we'll add a glass effect. It's really simple. First, we'll set a background to HSL and A color to also apply the opacity, and we'll use a white background, so 100%, but with alpha channel equals 0.15. And then let's add a backdrop filter. So this is property responsible for the glass effect, and let's add a blur 30 pixels. So right now we cannot see any effect because we need to place some content behind the card to see this blurry effect, but we'll get to this soon. I also think that it would be a good idea to move the card and the entire column slightly right to have a bigger space here. So in a Bootstrap grid we can do it this way. So let's change this col MD6 to col MD5 unit, so it will be slightly smaller, but let's also add an offset column MD1, and now it looks all right. Then we'll create these shapes. The circle will be very simple, and with this one we'll use a special dedicated tool to create this kind of shape, but we'll get to this soon. So here in the second column, let's create a div with an ID shape 1. Let's also add a few classes here. We need an absolute position, so position absolute, and we also want it to be a circle. So in Bootstrap we can use rounded circle class. Let's also add a shadow to the circle, shadow 5 strong. If you want to use a shadow on a dark background, always use a strong variant of shadows. And now we need a few lines of custom CSS. Shape 1 and set a height to 220 pixels, the same width. And set the background to radial, gradient, and I will use these colors. And set a position to bottom minus 100 pixels and left minus 90 pixels. And I forgot to add 1 to the name. And we also need to set to add a position relative class to the column. And I made a typo here. And yes, now it's okay. Then let's add a div for the second shape. And we'll use the same classes apart from rounded circle, because we want to have it has a special shape. And to create shapes like this, you can use a dedicated tool. So go to mdbootstrap.com and click in the search box, type fancy border radius generator, and here you can generate the shape you like. I'm going to use the shape that I prepared before. So here in my custom CSS, let's add shape 2 and then border radius equals to these values. And let's set a position to top minus 100 right, 10 pixels, width 300, high the same, and the background the same as here. And let's also set z index to -10, because on a mobile view it could interfere with a text here. And now you can see the real glass effect here. It's nicely blurry behind the card. Alright, let's add the rest of the content to the card. So here below the card body we'll add card footer, because we want the rest of the content to be aligned to the bottom of the card. But we don't need this border here, so let's add class border 0, and also let's increase the padding on x-axis, and then let's add the content. We will need this cheap image, so I've prepared the source file before. Let me add the class mb5 to add margin bottom, and let's also set a width to 50 pixels. Alright. Then let's add h5 and the card number. With a margin bottom. And paragraph for the name, Immortal John Doe, and the expiration date. And let's also add margin bottom, let's say 2, and here 5. We can also improve the typography by adding a few classes. So here to card footer element, let's add opacity 90, and let's increase the letter spacing by using class ls widest, and let's set font white to light. And we can do the same here in card body, opacity 90, ls widest. And now now the content looks perfect. Now really cool part. Let's create our own animation. We will need a few more lines of custom CSS. Let's create a class fade. Now let's set animation duration equals 1 second. Animation fill mode both. Padding auto. Animation name fade in. So I'm not going to get into details about creating animation in CSS here, because we'll need like 1 hour of dedicated tutorial exactly for this. So I will create this in a future. Right now you need to just trust me that we do a right thing. Alright, then let's also define a keyframes. And let's name it fade in. At 0% we want opacity equals 0 and to opacity equals 1. So our animation is just a fade in effect when we operate on opacity property, and we'll change it from 0 to 1. Let's see if it works. So we'll add this fade class to, let's say, container, and yes, it does. But when you compare it to this design, you will see that the animation does not appear at the same moment for each element. They just they appear gradually, one by one. So to achieve this effect, we will need to create a few more classes. Fade delay small and set animation delay to 0.15 second. Now let's copy this 2 more times. Here we want to be 0.3 second and here 0.4. Now let's remove it from here. And now we will add, well, actually we need to place all this content inside of the wrapper with a class fade and animation. Well, we don't need animation delay here. Yes. And then, all right. And here we want to add shape 1, fade, and animation delay small. To the second shape we'll add fade, animation delay medium, and to the card fade, animation delay big. And let's see if it works. So for some reason, alright, it's not animation delay, I choose a name fade delay small. So let's change it to animation Alright. Now it works as expected. Really cool. I love this. The last thing we want to do is to add interactiveness to the card. So to achieve this cool effect, we'll need an external library. It's a very small library, so do not be afraid. Just type tiled.js vanilla in a Google. You will also find a link in the description of this video. And click here, and then click here, and save the file as, and then save the file to the directory when you have downloaded your MDB package to JS folder. And now we need to link it in our index.html. So JS vanilla tiled JS. Now we'll need a few lines of custom JavaScript. So here let's initialize the vanilla tiled function. And let's catch our card by ID, document, query, selector, card, custom. And let's add a few options. Start 45 degree, then start. Oh, it should be start X, because we want to move the card on X axis by 45 degree, and we want to do the same with Y axis. And now let's also set a reset option to false. Oh, sorry, reset false. So when the cursor exits the card will stay in the same position. Let's see if it works. Oh yes, that's really lovely. So let's refresh the page and see it in its final state. Really cool. By the way, did you know that thanks to MD Bootstrap you can use free hosting for your projects? We call it MDB Go and it's really great. Visit mdbgo.com for more information. In the description of this video you'll also find a link to the detailed tutorial on how to use MDB Go hosting and how to install MDB CLI, which is a fantastic and free supporting tool that provides many useful functionalities. Now, let me just show you how easy it is to publish our newly created project on the internet thanks to MDB Go. I already have MDB CLI installed on my computer, so now all I need to do is to run my terminal, and then I need to enter the path of the project I want to upload. So here is the directory where we have downloaded the MDB package and where we have been working during this tutorial. So let me just copy this path and let's enter this. And now I need to type only a single command mdb publish, and I will choose npm package manager, and then all I need to do is to choose a name for my project. So let's name it animated glass intro, and then let's accept all other options, and after a few seconds my project will be available at this link. Let's see if it works, and yes, it does. Extremely fast, super useful. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the same as me. And that's it for this tutorial. Let me know in the comments if you found it useful. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and join our Facebook group. Thank you for watching. See you in the next tutorial.